Good morning. It's quite clear from yesterday and the day before, and I'm sure it's clear to you, that we don't live in a perfect world. And what's more, the study of vaccines is an imperfect science. This meeting was brought together, by ICA and EU GMS. And every one of you are experts in your field, or thought leaders, or bring to the table expertise. My observations yesterday were that there was an intense discussion about variations in methodology. There was also discussions about, different ways to understand uptake rates. We also listened to, conversations about chronological and biological age, and I throw in immunological age as well. So the discussions were robust amongst academics and scientists, and it was about the study of vaccines. What I was unclear about, later in the afternoon, is how we take that knowledge that you have as scientists and academics and clinicians and actually translate it into something meaningful for policymakers. Because as much as each of you know about vaccines, there is probably equally as much that you don't know. But when is it the time that we actually stop and say, this is how much we know, and this is what we can actually package up and translate into meaningful dialogue for policymakers? Because without the scientists, with the evidence that we have that you're confident with, we're not going to change policy. Now, I'm constantly reminded when my colleague LJ Tan, talks about, the great progress that's been made in certain areas in the United States. And yet I'm also touched by the progress that's been made in Italy in various areas. But once again, we actually don't have a good understanding of what good practice is in many of these countries. And what's more, at a country level, we are less comfortable with what we know about what are the particular barriers that prevent policies to be made. So the meeting for me has been a double-edged sword. I've gained a lot of knowledge and information about the study of vaccines. We've debated around whether ageing starts at birth or not, and I acknowledge my colleague in the audience that made that point, and I take that on. But we're here today really to understand how to take the expertise and knowledge that you have individually and collectively, and how do we translate that into something meaningful that can convince policymakers? Because unless that happens, then this conference has been an extraordinary time in my life to be able to open the window and see water. And we've been amongst good friends and colleagues and established or renewed our friendship, but that's where it stops. And I know that EU GMS and ICA don't want that. We must understand how to take what we've come together to do going forward. So, for example, is there value in a working group that understands a consistent methodology to measure uptake rates, or understand, what are the critical gaps that we have in research that if we knew that, then that would create that policy dialogue? Is it time to be as specific as that and come together around particular issues? Because as much as I love being in Italy and meeting good friends and starting new friendships, I don't want to be doing the same thing in 10 years. Because this is linked to your livelihoods, not only as scientists and academics and clinicians, but as individuals. Because this conference was about adult vaccinations in the context of healthy ageing. So let's not forget that. and that notion of the process of maintaining and sustaining our healthy ageing. So in closing, and my words were going to be very brief because you've got a very busy day, the three key messages are: one, this is not a conference that should finish this afternoon. What we act on going forward, we have a responsibility as scientists, academics and clinicians. But I'm not convinced that we understand how to do that just yet. The second is there an opportunity to actually come together around uptake rates, impact and effectiveness? And is there a body of knowledge that if we knew, then that would stimulate policy dialogue? And my final thought, which I started with, was we live in an imperfect world. Vaccines is an imperfect science. We have to count on thought leaders and experts that are here today to give us guidance around how much do we need to know to then make the case, both socially and economically, for vaccines for adults to be on the policy agenda. Thank you.